What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down the All-Star race for this weekend at North Wilkesboro before we head off to Charlotte for the greatest day in motorsports to end May. We have the Indy 500, the Coke 600, that whenever F1's doing, I don't care. But we have the All-Star race this weekend, and of course, we're going to have a bit of a silly format, so we'll be breaking all of that down. But first, if this happens to be your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sundays, and I'm planning on going live around 5 p.m.-ish Eastern whenever the All-Star Open race starts. We can watch and break that down together, go over the lap times, and we'll see which drivers end up advancing, which of course is going to change the DFS landscape. And if you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you like down below, subscribe to the channel for brand new. Let's dive right into it. All right, let's go over the format first and foremost, just so we know what we're dealing with this weekend, because it did change a little bit from previous seasons. So it has been 200 laps. We're now expanding that to 250 this year. Still going to have that competition caution at lap 100. But the big twist this year is the promoter's caution, which could just throw a wrench into this entire race. And it's one of the main reasons why I'm not going to put too much money down in this one, because we are going to have actual race manipulation, potentially. So it's only allowed before lap 220. And if a natural caution does not happen after lap 200. So if NASCAR wants, this basically just means if NASCAR wants to spice this race up and it sucks, they can just throw a caution just to make things fun. So if we're winning all the money, I mean, they could just throw a yellow and everything gets thrown to shreds. I mean, they are literally telling us that it's probably going to happen. So that's something you have to prepare for this race. I'm not going to list off every completely already locked in driver. If you want to take a screenshot, you may do that. But we do have a new feature. It's the manufacturer showdown. Obviously Chevy, Ford, and Toyota. And I'm not going to read all through that, but if you want to, you can go ahead. And then we also have the All-Star Open race, where we're going to have two drivers. The ones that finish top two of that one, they will advance. And then you have the driver that has the highest fan vote will also go, and I believe it is like SVG, Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar. Might be forgetting somebody else, but I think that's the top names that at least popped up on my list. Oh, and Bubba Wallace. And then we have the qualifying structure, and then the heat races are going to set the lineup for Sunday's race. So we're going to have practice tonight, which I'm recording this on Friday right now. And then we're going to have qualifying, which is going to set the qualifying grid for the two heat races. And then the heat races are going to set the actual grid for the All-Star race. So hopefully that's not too confusing. We have the pit crew challenge and some other stuff, but I think we went over the more important things. All right, next thing we should probably talk about is, what is this track like? Well, it's almost half a mile. It's a little bit bigger than that, but it's just a short, flat track. They did repave this recently. So if you look at the first All-Star race, when Kyle Larson dominated and won, that was the old abrasive surface. They repaved over that, so it means nothing anymore. This is basically just going to be a track position race, or just guys getting wrecked out, and they will gain positions based off of that. If there was no promoter's caution, I would say it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of play the guys up front, or maybe a couple of guys you think that can move around a little bit depending on their price points. Last year was fantastic for DFS purposes for the All-Star race. This time around, I'm just not quite as confident just because of that promoter's caution, which could definitely throw a wrench into things. And I do want to mention the tire that they are using this weekend is the softer one that they used at Bowman Gray early in the season, and also Martinsville. Now, I do not have loop data from the Bowman Gray race because it was an expedition, but the first name that pops in my head when I hear that is Chase Elliott. He was great at Bowman Gray. He was great at Martinsville. I know he's a bit washed these days, but if he happens to do well, just know that it's the first name that popped up. All right, so looking at this week's figure, it's going to look a little bit different because I only have the drivers that I have projected to make the race currently. So it's going to be leaving off a lot of the bottom feeders, and some of these guys that are usually a little bit higher up are probably going to look a little bit worse. But, I think that's fine representation because we're only dealing with half the field potentially this week. All right, so the top drivers that show up in this short track data sample, short flat tracks since last season, it's kind of the ones you expect. Christopher Bell's pretty much at the very top. I mean, he's been insanely good. Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott's also there. Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, William Byron. That's kind of like your big dogs right there. I mean, I would say if this was a normal race, I'd be very shocked if it's not one of these 6 drivers or 7, whatever it is. But with this being the All-Star race, you never know what's going to happen. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I do mention one thing first, and that is, of course, gotta do my plugs, guys. It's a free video. Gotta feed the dog. If you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for that. I also cover baseball each and every single day. And if you are a new user, you can sign up completely free for a week to test drive all the tools without any risk to it. And with this being the All-Star race, might be a fine time to just come in and test drive it, because we shouldn't expect too much here from the All-Star race, but there will be plenty of data still to sift through. And I won't sit here and mention everything, but I do cover everything from the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series optimizers for both DraftKings and FanDuel. And of course, the contest simulator, which I do have for DraftKings. You can set up to 10,000 lineups at once, and you can see which drivers offer the best ROI before the race starts, or which lineups stack up the best in tournaments, depending on what kind of contest you are in. And you can even uncover yourself for cash games as well. But there's a ton of data here, tons of information. You won't find it anywhere else besides right here. So if you want to come in, check it out, I'd love to have you. If not, that's fine. Let's get right into it. All right, it's the next day. The sun is in my eyes, but I cannot stop it. But we had practice and qualifying take place. We also had our 2 heat races. So we know the starting grid besides the 2 open drivers and the fan vote. Those are in the yellow currently. I just picked 3 random drivers of my choice to slide in here, but obviously whoever ends up advancing, they will probably be viable DFS plays just because they're going to be starting in the very back and you can't move backwards, and you already have a nice floor built in just based off of there not being 40 drivers in the field this weekend. But I'm not going to spend time and break them down because it could be completely useless because we do not know which drivers that will end up being. I'll go over that in the live stream tomorrow evening. But let's take a look at the practice session here. And I'm not sure how much you're going to want to put into it. Obviously, the tires don't really seem like they're going to matter too much. And the first heat race, Brad Keselowski never got tires. He still ends up winning, holding off Ross Chastain and William Byron. The second heat race, everyone comes down pit road around lap 30 besides Chase Briscoe, and he ends up getting dusted and ends up spitting out. So TBT, I guess, on that. Although I really don't think they're going to make too much of a difference here. But just on the first practice, we had 110 laps ran by Joey Logano. That's going to be the most of anybody. But Tyler Reddick was the fastest just based off of how I rank their laps. If you're looking at the overall just average, Gillen only ran 58 laps, so I don't think that's really a good sample because, yeah, the less laps you run, it's always going to artificially inflate you a little bit. So the way I like to rank it probably shows a little bit of a better picture. Reddick was at the top of Wallace. He was another guy that did not take tires in his heat race, ends up fading back a little bit. But Wallace, Chase Elliott looked good in his heat race after a while. Didn't start off great, but that's how you finish, not how you start. Bell looked great in his. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how much you want to take away from it. Obviously, Chad Fincham was completely useless, and he will be in the open race team tomorrow afternoon. But other than that, I mean, probably not any great takeaways. I did take the lap data, scraped it from the heat races. I mean, it's basically what you'd expect. The front runners did have the best lap times, although the second heat race definitely picked up the pace. As you can see, they have some darker shades there of green for the guys up front. But the first section here is our first heat race. Brad Keselowski was on the pole. I believe William Byron started 4th, maybe. Now, the one driver I was probably the most impressed with, and I think kind of breaking this down by the heat race maybe makes more sense because, you know, who's better in the race conditions in their heat race, and they'll probably stack up a little bit better for tomorrow based on better so than looking at practice speeds, maybe, I guess. Keselowski is going to be up top just because he started on the pole and you have the clean air. It's impossible to pass the leader. I mean, yeah, you're going to be up front. But Ryan Blaney started in the very back of the field, ends up getting a speeding penalty. He passed half the cars, ends up having to go in the very back once again, passes half the cars once again. I honestly thought he was going to go straight to second. Ends up having a little bit of an issue with Ross Chastain, which takes him out of contention. But the driver I was most impressed with for the first heat race was Ryan Blaney. I don't think it was even close. Other than that, I don't really think there's any standouts there. Everyone just kind of ran where they probably should have. Ross Chastain was impressive at the very end, but I do think Blaney was the standout in the first group, and probably pretty interesting for DFS purposes just based off of that, because he was making some passes, and it's not exactly easy to do at a track like this. Second heat race, Christopher Bell show, although not really surprising. I mean, he just controlled the race the entire time, controlled on the restart after Chase Briscoe ends up staying out. He was the fastest car there. He's ready to short flat tracks. I mean, yeah, makes sense to me. Logano, the same. Kyle Busch made up some spots. He was also pretty impressive. Chase Elliott started in the rear of the field, ended up gaining some spots back. I think we kind of talked about it where I expect him to have a decent car just based off the tire we were running this weekend. Now, the one glaring spot here is Denny Hamlin. I do not know what happened with this car, and it really concerns me. I mean, he's 2/10 off of Harrison Burton in a Rick Ware car. I mean, that's just horrible. 18.7 compared to 19.3. If you look at the worst car in the first heat race, it was Ricky Stenhouse at 19.1. So he's even 2/10 off of that. Like, whatever they did with Denny's car, just it was a horrible adjustment. Hopefully they can figure that out tomorrow. But I have my concerns. I mean, Kyle Larson's going to be starting in the rear of the field, and obviously we didn't get to see him run anything because they didn't even show up for this heat race. Justin Allgaier wasn't even in the car. It's nothing. But I have to assume it's going to be faster than Denny Hamlin. So I feel like if it comes to a 1-to-1, it's pretty easy just to say with Kyle Larson there. So Denny Hamlin's a bit of a concern. Obviously, he'll have the place differential, but yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for. But we'll go driver by driver here. Shouldn't take too long. We don't have much of a field to even talk about here. And some quick things I want to mention. The FanDuel tags for these drivers highlighted in yellow. I just threw in random price tags because my projection system has to have a salary tag assigned to it, and FanDuel does not include the open drivers. So if you are on FanDuel, you can start building tonight whenever you're watching this video. Feel free to do that. Over on DraftKings, you're going to have to wait because this slate's just going to change depending on who gets in there, and I do not know who that's going to be. I just picked 3 random drivers, so don't put too much into it. So we'll start from top to bottom here. Salary, we'll have 20 drivers to talk about, and we'll start with the 5-figure range first. And we have Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Larson. So obviously, 2 things that stand out is the bright red beside Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin here. They offer a ton of place differential. They're 2 of the best drivers in the field, but like we just talked about, I'm kind of concerned about Denny Hamlin's lap times because if they don't get that car fixed for tomorrow, I mean, they're just dust. They were the worst car by far. So for Denny Hamlin, for people that want to play Denny Hamlin, please keep an eye on Twitter, seeing what Denny Hamlin or anybody, any news source is saying about his car, if they can end up getting that fixed, if they knew what the issue was. Because he was just extremely tight, could not turn that car. And man, he was just so far off because he had good track position in that heat race and it just completely went away from him. So if he's going to be extremely chalky and that issue is not going to get fixed, he's just going to run in the bag all day and he'll be a waste of $10,000 or $13K on FanDuel. I feel a lot more comfortable currently with Kyle Larson starting in 19th. Of course, they're not getting any laps ran from him himself. So it's not really useful to look at any of Justin Allgaier's practice times by any means, but Larson is my preferred spend up. If you were trying to get place differential, he'll be a cash game staple. And Ryan Blaney, I do like him starting in 7th. Like we mentioned, looking at lap times in the heat race and just watching it from the eye test, he looked like he had pretty much the best car. He was the only guy that was passing people for the most part. So I think he'd be a very intriguing tournament play because if, let's just say Denny Hamlin's going to be extremely chalky because I'm assuming not many people had nothing else to do on Saturday and were watching the heat race or just saying, oh, hey, Denny starts 20th. Why the heck not? Well, if that issue progresses and he's going to be extremely chalky and Blaney will not because people are going to play Kyle Larson as well, I really like the Blaney pivot in GPPs because he could legit have a shot at winning this race. It's going to be tough not being on the front row to win, but he'll have a shot at it. Christopher Bell, starting our 9K range. We have William Byron, Joey Logano, and Chase Elliott. All these guys are going to be starting inside the top 6, so there's really not going to be too much to differentiate them. I would think Bell has the best shot of winning of this group and leading laps. He's going to be starting in the front row, and he probably has the best car, but having the best car might not be enough to pass Brad on the pole because he's got the preferred position. But I do like Bell just because he's going to run up front for the majority of the day. He was also a threat last year. William Byron, like he's okay. Joey Logano's okay. Chase Elliott's okay. I mean, there's really not much else I can say. There's just not much that's going to differentiate them. The cheapest of the bunch is Chase Elliott. I think he'll have a fast car. He was able to move through the field a bit in the heat race, so he's my preferred option of him just because of the cheapness compared. I mean, it's only $300, $500, but and then yeah, $800 from Christopher Bell. But I do think Bell's got a better shot of leading some laps in this one. Then we have the 8K range. Ty Gibbs, Wallace, if they make it, they'll have good PD, but no idea yet. So we're stuck with Reddick, Briscoe, Chris Buescher, and Alex Bowman. I could see Reddick and Briscoe having some ownership. If people are looking at practice times, Tyler Reddick definitely had the best car in practice. Now, we didn't really see that translate in the heat race. He looked good until he slid out with tires. And then the guys that got fresh tires, he ends up fading back a bit. So maybe that wasn't a fair judgment of Tyler Reddick's race. Same with Chase Briscoe. He was running in P2 and then he stays out and then gets dusted. So I think they're going to be fine. 13th and 14th, that's fine PD plays. They'll project better than Buescher, Bowman, and Kyle Busch in the 7K range, but they'll project better than Buescher and Bowman just because of the extra spots and their projected finish. It's going to be pretty much identical. If anybody's sitting here and tell you, oh, I have a huge lean on Chris Buescher over Chase Briscoe, I mean, they're probably just making that up. 7K range, quite a few drivers here. Austin Cindric, Ross Chastain, Josh Berry, maybe Ryan Preece. If Ryan Preece makes this race, I really like him. He's really good at these types of tracks. He's had a lot of speed this year. So if he makes it, I'm rooting for it because he'll be starting in the very back. Then Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was actually pretty impressive. I think in his heat race, it could be a pretty interesting tournament play. Other than that, I don't see a lot to love in the 7K range. Chastain starting really far up front, which the track position is fine, but I could see him being a likely candidate to move back. I'm not saying he don't play. It's hard to say anybody in this field to not play because there's barely anybody here, and all the lap times are so close. It's just a matter of how these guys get shuffled at the very end, and passing is going to be difficult. So if nothing happens to Ross and he just runs third all day, gets a fast lap here and there, like it's fine for DFS. It's just hard to, like I said, I'm not playing for much for this race, but I'm assuming people are going to, so we got to have some content for it. Cindric will have PD, but I can't imagine him being super strong in this one. 6K range, we do have a standout play, Brad Keselowski. He'll be starting on the pole when he can control this race, and if he is going to lead a somewhat decent amount of this race, he is free. He's one of the cheapest drivers in the field, and those down points can stack up. And there is a outcome where Brad Keselowski is the highest scoring driver on this slate as well, and he's dirt cheap. So the upside's there. Of course, the floor is low. If he can't clear Chris Rebel at the very beginning and he just ends up fading back and finishes 8th, that's not going to get the job done. So that's in the cards. The floor is not there. But from what we have seen at this track, if you have the track position and you start on the pole, you're probably going to score a lot of fantasy points. So Brad is no exception to that. He'll be starting first, and he's below 7K, so it's just hard not to like him. He's going to project very well, I assume, in most places. And then Suarez, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse. I don't expect a lot of speed from these guys, and they'll probably be running somewhere in the back. And for some reason, I neglected to put Harrison Burton on here, but I will not be playing him no matter what. He's going to be extremely slow. If Denny didn't have an issue with his car, he would have been the worst car in the field, but he's in a Rick Ware machine. There is no reason to play him unless half the field wrecks out and he gets there, but I think that's probably an unlikely outcome. And just based off how the salary is on this race, I just don't see a reason why you'd have to drop down to the 5,500 range. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you like down below, subscribe to the channel for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to check out the Patreon, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for that. I'll be live tomorrow evening during the open race, and you guys can ask me any questions or just come in, hang out during the race. I'll have my screen up there showing all the lap times and whatnot, and that'll be pretty fun. So hopefully I will see you all there, but if not, that's fine. I wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.